If you didn't know already, Harry Styles has just released a new album called Harry's House, and if you haven't listened to it yet, it's really quite interesting, because it's exactly what music used to be, and it's what music should be. And this is why I think it is an example of what the future of music is going to be. For the last 20 to 25 years, mainstream pop music has, for the most part, been mostly pretty bad. And by that I mean it's all a thoughtless copy of the last thing that did well in the charts. And I've actually done a few videos on this. One about why pop songs use only 4 chords, and another about how TikTok controls and affects the music industry. As an artist, everyone is scared of being irrelevant, and because there is so much music in the world now, and making music is accessible to anyone, music in the charts ends up being pretty boring and formulaic. It's quick and dirty. It's kind of like the McDonald's of music. I'm loving it. And I think it started in the 90s in the boy band era, where music sales wasn't really about music, it was more about the whole package. Basically, if you could get teenagers to scream at you, then you could get in the charts regardless of the music. Before this, when the barrier for entry was perhaps a little higher in music, the artists that were doing it as a job had a bit more license for expression, and there was some real interesting music, and an actual mix of genres that made it into the charts. You've got artists like the Beatles, Whitney Houston, Wham, Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, Culture Club, who are all very different from one another as artists, and I would suggest that some of those wouldn't have a chance at mainstream success now because their music just doesn't fit the mould. But I also think that things are starting to change in the same way people like a good independent restaurant or bar now, and want more of an experience rather than a quick 6 chicken nuggets. Although there's still obviously a time and a place for a greasy Big Mac. Harry's House is an album that builds off of artists that Harry Styles is inspired by, and takes influence from lots of different genres of music. If you take the first song on the album, Music for a Sushi Restaurant, the song uses synths that almost remind me of early music technology in the opening and then randomly at the end of the song. There's a drum beat that sounds kind of Latin American. There's vocal parts that sound like the 60s. There's some 80s and 90s electronic percussion thrown in there, and a funk bass line straight out of the 70s. There's even some scatting going on and some brass lines that you just don't hear in pop music. It's almost Jacob Collier-esque in creativity. If you take a moment to compare any of those features to any normal modern pop song that you can think of, it's a song that is very clearly heavily inspired by what Harry Styles likes and listens to. And when you listen to it, it feels like a piece of artwork. It doesn't just feel like another song that's been made in order to fill a space in the charts. It feels genuine and authentic to Harry's style, pun intended. And I think it would be hard pushed for a musician to take a song like that and find things that they don't like or that are wrong with it, like you might do if you're listening to a 4-chord pop song. And the most interesting thing about this album is that there isn't 2 songs that have the same vibe, yet all songs sound coherent as part of an album. If we take a song later on in the album, Matilda, you could not get a song that is further in feel from the first one. It's guitar and vocals for the most part, with some piano later on in the song, and the instruments chosen reflect the sentiment of the song and give you the feeling of someone just sitting down with an instrument and getting what they feel out, which is exactly what music is supposed to be. Music, along with other art forms, gets passed down through generations and changes little by little and influenced by different cultures. And I'm not saying this is the first time that this has happened for 20 to 25 years. We have had artists like Justin Timberlake, Bruno Mars, and a few others that have brought to the mainstream some real interesting music. However, with Lizzo bringing out some bangers, and people like Ariana Grande, who has also made some interesting songs, like Shut Up, which was the opening song of the album Positions, and now an album from Harry Styles, who used to be in a boy band that was essentially the definition of cut and paste music.
Kind of started with My Face and then worked around.
I think that over time, we are going to see music in the charts become a real expression of art once again, rather than corporate created 4-chord music. The album is called Harry's House because he wanted to create an album that was his sound world, that was what he wanted to create and not what would give him a fast pass to a #1 dance hit, with 15 seconds of choreography to match. And I think although there is always a place for, let's call it functional music, music that is for the sole purpose of content or dance, I think music as its own art form will start to become more of what it was 30 to 40 years ago, which is an actual expressive art form. This is obviously not sponsored or anything, but if you haven't listened to Harry Styles' album yet, go and check it out and let me know in the comments what you think of it. The problem is we need to think of music as its own content again, rather than just as TikTok content. If you want to find out why and how TikTok controls the music industry, then check out this video and I will see you there.